I'm back. And now I was talking about division of labor.
Your wife.
I was talking about, yes, my wife and I, when we got married, one of the first agreements we had was she loads the dishwasher and I unload the dishwasher. When she loads the dishwasher, I am not hovering over her back saying, no, move that over there, no, that belongs better over there. No, that's her job, she's in charge of that. By the same token, when I'm unloading, she doesn't tell me, no, put that in this drawer, in the other drawer, I put it away. And so it makes life a lot easier. This way we're both contributing to the common cause, taking care, but we are doing it in ways where we have control over what we do. Now obviously there are more important areas in which people make these divisions, okay? But people want to do something that is needed, where they can feel respected, but they don't want to be bullied. And the way you do that, without people stepping on each other's toes, is developing a division of labor. In fact, virtually every successful couple that I know has this kind of division of labor. A lot of them are non-traditional. My brother, for example, does the cooking in his household. His wife does the cleaning up. Works for them. I'm not here to tell anybody what particular division of labor they should have, but I am here to say that one of the things we need to learn to make these relationships work is we need to develop these divisions of labor. This notion that everyone's going to be on the same page without conflict, that's a fairy tale. That has nothing to do with real-life human beings, the best of whom are occasionally selfish. That includes me. Shh, don't tell my wife. Actually, she knows.
She knows.
Of course she knows. Okay? So we need to be aware of this, and we need to be open about this and get over some of this nonsense that's out there in public today about finding one's soulmate and so forth, you know? Incidentally, you know, divorce is rampant in our society, but it is not equally rampant everywhere. The folks who are least likely to get divorced are college-educated folks who get married in their late 20s. These are folks who have learned who they are, learned how to judge other people, make the best choices, and then because they're already adult, are able to work through their differences. It's the young ones who have the biggest trouble in this kind of thing. Now, we also have other things I'm not going to go into that are related to this, that cohabitation is a big thing nowadays. Half of all folks cohabit, that is, live with somebody without benefit of clergy before they marry. Now, the other part of family is, of course, raising the children. And again, it's not like all ways of raising children are equal. Some are much better than others. Turns out that middle-class parents are much more likely to raise their children to be, in sociology we call self-directed. That is, people who can make independent choices, good independent choices, even within an environment of uncertainty. This is the kind of thing that you need to do in professionalized jobs, or managerial jobs, in the kinds of jobs that the upper middle class are likely to have. And so they teach their children to be capable of this. They bring them to Little League games. They do things like a simple thing, like talk to their kids over the dinner table and ask their kids questions and respect their children's opinions so that they gradually learn how to have better and better opinions. Poorer families are more likely to believe in what's called natural growth. The kids come home, go outside, play. You're on your own. You don't get the guidance, you don't get the support, you don't get things explained to you the way you do in other places. Well, we need to help folks, not just the upper middle class, most of whom know how to do this, but working class folks and poor folks. We need to teach these folks to do these things too, so their kids have more of an equal chance in this world. And we need to start talking about the importance of family. Mind you, not in the traditional religious sense, although again I remind you, I'm not against people who live by the religious rules in marriages. But the fact of the matter is, they are a minority nowadays, and even most religious folks don't literally mean that the man is the head of the household and the woman is merely his helpmeet to do whatever he wants. There is much greater equality in religious homes too. In other words, people reinterpret even the religious rules to fit the present circumstances. So we've got to look at the present circumstances, and we've got to stop excusing a lot of the things that go on, like the promiscuity. Okay? I just find this disgusting that this has become the norm in the media and so forth. I mean, in college, what students find, by the way, is that young girls in particular, when they get to college, away from their parents, often go wild the first year and have an experiment sexually. But then, by the time they get to their junior years, they have calmed down considerably because they have learned that if you are promiscuous, you get a reputation for being, and I use this word intentionally, a slut. Seriously. If you sleep around, people know about it, and they judge you accordingly. And people, I mean, whatever people say in public, this is a reality. So we need to start being more open and honest about this kind of thing if we are in fact to value families, as I do. I do not think we can get to the point where the government raises our children. That would be a total disaster. All right?
Yeah.
That's 4. 5. Liberty. Obviously, this is something that conservatives and libertarians are specializing in nowadays. But I think that even liberals, remember the origin of the word liberal, believe in liberty, believe in freedom, don't quite interpret it the same way. But we as a society need to be much more clear what we mean by liberty. Remember, we started talking about liberty in our society as a way of getting out from under the thumb of a tyrannical government. If you read the Declaration of Independence, George III sounds worse than Hitler. Well, he wasn't worse than Hitler, but he was taking away freedoms that the colonists had become accustomed to exercising. And so that's my starting point. We definitely do not want a government that controls all of our doings. Although, of course, we are moving in that direction with the nanny state. You know, Michael Bloomberg, oh, you could only have a soda glass that's less than 16 ounces. Yes, it's true, you can go and buy 2 15-ounces, but no, 16. What kind of nonsense is this? Okay? This is, the government is allowed to control absolutely everything. And I love the rationale. The rationale is, well, we've got to control this because it's unhealthy, and we have to control this because we, the government, pay for it. Well, who asked you to pay for it? Get the heck out. Don't use this as an excuse to run every inch of my life. Yeah. Nonetheless, we do have a safety net provided by the government. And quite frankly, I think we should have a safety net provided by the government. I am not against Social Security. Mind you, I think it needs to be reformed, probably more along the lines of what's done in Chile, but we need to have these programs sponsored by the government. I'm not a libertarian. I'm closest to being conservative. Probably call me a neo-conservative. I don't know what else to call me. Okay? But I think I want to learn from experience. And experience tells me that the government does have a role to play in protecting people, but that this role needs to be limited, and we are seeing the limits being played out for us in Europe today, where governments have overextended and are creating more problems than they are solving. Okay? So I say, let's do that, let's understand that. Let's understand as well something that John Stuart Mill understood a century and a half ago, that there is a distinction between, this is my colleague from KSU who spoke to us, spoke to you a few weeks ago. In other words, he distinguished quite clearly between liberty and license. Liberty doesn't mean you can do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. You don't have the liberty, the freedom to hurt other people. And remember earlier I said that one of the values I subscribe to is responsibility. Well, responsibility cuts down your freedoms too. You agree to perform certain tasks, it's incumbent upon you to do it and not say, well, I just changed my mind. You know, we have a president who does that all the time. You know, he makes a promise, he does something, and the next thing you know, it's not operative anymore. Well, it strikes me that responsibility and liberty do not have to be at odds, although just as I say, equality is not absolute, liberty is not absolute. People who think it's absolute are wrong, okay? Now, I'm sympathetic with the libertarians, but I do not think that the market system of itself is going to correct all problems. I had the good fortune when I was a graduate student to see Milton Friedman, the conservative economist, in operation. And he talks about community standards. In other words, community effects is the term he uses, that there are some things like pollution and what have you that we cannot control as individuals, that we do need to have a government to control. Even Adam Smith realized that you had to have rules to keep business people from cheating, because they will, if they get a chance. So with all of these caveats, I say, let's have liberty. So those are my 5 things. But I don't think they're easy. I don't think they're easy at all. I think that they take courage. I think that it takes a dedication to do them. I think that we live in a world where the words flow easily. And I hope you know, we live in a world where there are lots and lots of phonies. Lots and lots of people who pretend to be what they are not. In fact, part of growing up is learning to make distinctions between the folks who are for real and the folks who are not for real, okay? We have more phoniness than ever before, thanks to things like the media and public relations and marketing research and what have you. People have learned to manipulate more effectively than ever, which means we have to be on guard more effectively than ever against this thing. Otherwise, you get this kind of cynicism where people will say that someone like me who talks about morality, well, it's just words. Everybody's got words, you know. It just doesn't mean anything. You're just posturing. You're just trying to prove how great you are by saying how you believe in morality and whatnot. Well, are there people who do that? Of course. Obama is one of those people, for goodness sakes. Okay? I mean, it strikes me that Romney was far more moral than Obama, but the one who talked about it did his great works over and above things is Obama. You know, I was just thinking the other day, and I may write a column about this, how is it possible for somebody who is a community organizer to become a multimillionaire? Where did that money come from? It sure as heck didn't come from his job.
Or his books.
Or his book. His book didn't sell until he got into the public eye. That's absolutely right. It was not the book. It was, I'm pretty sure, I scratch your back if you scratch mine. Okay?
Comment.
Yes. Okay. So I'm saying, okay, we've got to overcome this cynicism. We've got to be real about this thing. And we have got to understand that it's hard. Telling the truth is hard. It's lots of times much easier to mislead people or to not say or whatever. I had an interesting situation years ago. I had a colleague, he's gone now. His name was Vasily Economopoulos. You remember? Vasily was just a great guy. Everybody liked Vasily because he was a genuine article. Anyway, we were friends, we were the same department, and this was when Ernestine and Murray did their book, The Bell Curve, and it was being castigated for being racist. Well, in fact, there was only one chapter in it that could be interpreted that way. Anyway, Vasily came down hard against this book, and I was defending it, and then I went and said to him, "Did you read it?" And he had to admit he had. I had, but he hadn't. Gave me a bit of a lecture, all right? Several months went by. We're talking about something else. Forget the topic. Another book involved. And then he asked me if I had read the book. And I hadn't. And I was waiting. I was waiting for him to drop the hammer on me. And he didn't. And I said, well, gee, you didn't get it, you didn't hear it. Well, several months later we were talking, and it came out. He heard it, he knew what it was. He knew that I gave him the perfect opportunity to get back at me. And he said that he intentionally did not take advantage of it because he knew that it was hard for me to admit the truth, and he wasn't going to take advantage of that. Most people wouldn't even notice something like that. Because in this real world, most of us, if it's embarrassing, and we move on, okay? Or we flat out tell lies. So telling the truth is hard. Being responsible is hard. Lots of jobs are not easy. We have to put ourselves out of the way. We have to give up other things that we may want better in order to live up to our responsibilities. It is certainly hard to admit when we make mistakes. I know it's hard for me to admit it to myself, never mind to other people. I hate making mistakes. But you know, sometimes you have to just give you real tough with yourself and say, damn, I screwed up. Mind you, I grew up with a father who was lower middle class, and his attitude was, you never make a mistake. You do it right from the first time. And if you don't do it right from the first time, then people have every right to jump on you. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're doing new things, you're going to make mistakes. Okay? The only way you avoid making mistakes is stay in the same rut over and over again. Okay? You do new things, some things go wrong, that's not the issue. I mean, you try your best, you try to avoid them, but heck, things happen. No, the real issue is, do you learn from them? Do you fix what's broken? That's what matters. Okay? And again, that's not necessarily easy. So that takes the courage. Fairness. Well, you know, we could say same rules for everybody, but you know, if the rules are bent in our favor, are we always going to object to that? Or if somebody else is getting the short end of the stick, are we always going to stand up and say, wait a minute now? I mean, you know, it's sort of like our selfishness does rear its ugly head. And lots of times we don't even realize that that's going on. We do like advantages. I remember, I start my chapter on this in the manuscript that I'm writing. When I was a kid, I say we did not grow up anywhere near rich. And so, you know, soda pop was a big deal. And when we had it at dinner, my mother was the one who filled the glasses for my sister and myself. almost every night we squabbled. You gave her more! Why did you give her more? No, he's got more! Isn't this the way we are? Don't we tend to think we have been cheated, compared to other people? Therefore, trying to be fair about this and understand things, especially when they can be not precisely equal, and that's hard too, and takes a certain degree of self-control. Family. I spent time talking about footfalls. Lord knows, if you are married, you have to know what I'm talking about. When you get married, you give up things. Now, I got married very late in the deal, okay? And so I was used to doing things my own way. When I wanted to go someplace, I went. Nowadays, I want to go someplace. Well, my wife doesn't stop me, but I better tell her. Not going to do it on my own, okay? Or I do most of the shopping in our household. Do I always get what I want? Not a bit of it, because I have to worry about what she likes. And you try to blend this thing. So, in fact, I am eating fewer vegetables now that we are married, because my wife doesn't particularly like vegetables. And she is eating fewer starches, because I cannot have a steady diet of starches. And so both of us have changed our eating habits to accommodate one another. These things happen all the time in a relationship. And lots of times in a relationship, you wind up doing things that you really do not want to do. You lose freedom. You plain old-fashioned lose freedom. But you get some compensating things, don't you? You get, I was a therapist for many years, and one of the things that the clients liked about being in therapy is they finally had somebody who was trying to understand them. I was not just listening, but trying to figure out what are they saying to me. In this world, it is amazing how most other people don't listen. They're worried about their end of the conversation and what they're going to say, and they're really not thinking through what you mean. They don't even care for the most part. If you're in a good marriage, you have somebody to listen. Who cares? My wife probably won't like me telling this story, but it's going to come out, so I'll tell it. My wife's parents divorced when she was in her mid-teens. And they stayed divorced for about a year, and then they remarried. And then a year after that, they got divorced for a second time. Then her mother went, following a relationship, out of state, and her father remarried. And he stayed remarried for decades. And then his second wife died. And then he got into communication with his first wife. And they remarried. And my wife was just thrilled. Her parents are together again, And they've been together for 3 years. And then 3 days ago, they're going to get divorced again. Yes.
Talking about a roller coaster.
Now you've got to understand, this really broke my wife's heart. She was really hoping for the best. And she really needed someone to pour her heart out to. And so part of my job is to listen. Not to tell her you should do this and do that, but so that there's somebody in this world who knows what she's going through. This is important. This is a good thing. Yes, you give up things to get this, but if it's a good marriage, it's worth it. And there are a lot of these trade-offs in life. One of the dumbest things that you hear people say is, you can have it all. In this world, absolutely untrue. Nobody has it all. You go for one thing, you give up another thing. And so you have to learn that, and that takes being an adult. And the last thing that takes courage is liberty. If you're making independent decisions, you can make mistakes. And you've got to live with those mistakes. And that's hard too. Now I could say more, but I'm being told that I'm being closed out. But there's one more thing that I've got to say to wrap this all up, okay? I've got a book out called The Limits of Idealism. Very hard on idealism. I talk about idealism as for the very young. But now I want to make a distinction between two kinds of idealism. The romantic idealism of the young, where they imagine all these wonderful things going to happen forever and ever. We're going to live happily ever after, that kind of stuff. And realistic idealism, where you understand the limitations in this world. You know you're not going to get past them, but you're trying to make the world a better place anyway. And that's what I mean by promoting these 5 values. I do not expect perfection. But in this world, if people don't try to make things better, they have a way of getting worse. So I say, anybody who wants to join me in this project, anybody who's got ideas, let me know. Anybody got a place where they would like me to speak? Hey, I'm here. If it doesn't interfere with my teaching, I'm available. That said,
thank you.